You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickle
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And it looks like we are live. We'll wait for John to get the Facebook group pulled in here, the Superfan group. Waiting on him. Good to go. Green check marks across all platforms. Mile high. Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me, as per usual, is my good friend and colleague. He is your Denver Broncos insider, Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickle. Erick, what's going on, man? Last night was a lot of fun. We got our own show back today. Just to get a quick fill-in show. What's going on? How was your night last night?
Dude, I had a blast doing that big podcast night. Glad that we get out here and have our own kind of show, our own Valley Deep Divers today. I know it's early, guys. Trust me, I'm tired. It's 10 a.m. for me, so I'm normally still sleeping or just about to get up at this point. So super excited to be talking about this. We're going to be talking about the Senior Bowl. I mean, that's coming up. And MHI, Mile High Insiders, that's still on for tonight. And one of their co-hosts, Luke Patterson, is going to be down at the Senior Bowl this week. So make sure you guys are following him on Twitter as well, so you guys can catch up on all the on the boots reports, interviews, all that stuff that Luke's going to be providing for Mile High Huddle. Make sure you guys are following him all for that and everything. Yeah,
if you guys have any questions, at Luke Patterson LP on Twitter, get after him on that. Also, again, Mile High Insiders tonight, 6 p.m. As per usual, you can get at him there as well, ask him anything. But before we get going, guys, got to shout out to our presenting sponsor of today's podcast, Manscaped. So, guys, listen up. 2020 sucked, but it's 2021 now, which means it's time to embrace the new year and new me mindset. And the best way to start cultivating that is with Manscaped. Manscaped's the best in men's below-the-waist grooming, offering precision-engineered tools for your boys downstairs and helping 2 million men around the world, keeping their male grooming on point. So, guys, if you let yourself go in 2020 while in quarantine, Manscaped is here for you to reboot and stay clean and shaved in 2021. Erick, what do you got?
Well, I absolutely love Manscaped. I got it a while ago. Came with this awesome little travel bag that fits everything that you can get from there. And, of course, the Lawnmower 3000, it comes with its own little carrying case, of course. Let me get this open to show that off a little bit. It's small. It's compact. It works extremely well. It's just simple, easy to use. There's a nice little light on it. As you can kind of see, there's a nice little light. So you can see what you're doing. Super, super easy. Wouldn't say it's fun, but it's easy to use. You don't have much harm or risk of harming yourself. Excuse me. But it all comes back to the Lawnmower 3000, the bag. Those are the two things that I absolutely love about it.
Yeah, that third-generation trimmer, that light and everything like that travel bag, it's kind of great. Everything kind of works together. They got nail clipper kits, some cologne as well, some kind of cleaning wipes for everything downstairs. They're really kind of nice. But speaking of comfort, to make everything a little bit nicer down there, the Manscaped anti-chafing boxer briefs that are also included, they're hands down the best underwear you will ever wear. So 2020 was awful, so make sure your boys are refreshed and ready for new beginnings in 2021. Embrace the new year, new me mindset with Manscaped. So get 20% off and free shipping with code HUDDLE at manscaped.com. Your boys will thank you.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
That was fun. Anyway, so with the Senior Bowl, guys, the Senior Bowl starts this week. Today is players on the ground. They're actually starting to arrive in Mobile this year, and there's some pretty interesting players that we didn't really get to talk about any of them last night doing the top 5 My Guys. These players that we're going to get here is going to be a lot of the day 2 and day 3 prospects, a lot of the seniors, obviously the Senior Bowl. There's a few players that actually declared that they were going to go to the Senior Bowl a little bit late in the entire thing, with Devontae Smith and Najee Harris out of Alabama. They're on the rosters. Probably not going to play a lot, get some practices in, stuff like that, not really put any risk to their bodies, but go do the big interview process. Now, Erick, I'm going to pull up the American team first here. We'll kind of break this down by the rosters here. Start on the defensive line here. Any names that really jump out to you? Let's see. I've got Marvin Wilson out of Florida State, Carlos Basham from Wake Forest, Chauncey Golson, an edge defender out of Iowa. Who else is there that really kind of piques your interest?
Well, quickly, I want to talk about one point that you kind of hinted at but didn't really go into, and that's the interviews.
Yes.
With the combine so impacted this year, not being able to have the normal combine that they have, the Senior Bowl is the biggest pre-draft event this year. Those interviews are going to be key for so many of these players. So guys like Devontae Smith and Najee Harris, they're super smart to go and decide to do that. Even if they don't need to show anything on the field. They don't need to show what they can do against tougher competition like some of these smaller school guys. They got to go nail these interviews. Now, getting to the American team on the defensive line and edge groups, I mean, you named a couple of them. Marvin Wilson, obviously, he didn't have the best year after deciding to return. I really liked him last year. Hopefully, he can sit there and boost his stock a little bit. I've heard that interviews are going to be kind of key for him as well, but he does have to show up on the field. Chauncey Golson, he had a really big year this year, surprisingly. Like, I didn't expect much out of him from what I saw leading up to the season, but he stepped up. He had a pretty good year with everything so impacted that he's going to be one that I'm going to see what he can do, because on the national team and even on the American team for practices, there's a lot of talent at offensive tackle, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. But there's one guy who kind of stands out for me, and that is William Bradley King out of Baylor. I really like him whenever I watch Baylor. If I remember right, he didn't put up big numbers. I might be mistaken on that. I can't remember his stats off the top of my head. But he's got really good athleticism. He's got good quickness. He's still a little raw, still needs a little bit of that technical refinement, and needs to be taught some pass rush moves and some counters and stuff like that. But I like the potential that he brings. And this is a guy that right now I'm probably looking at maybe late day 3 undrafted that could really boost his stock with a good Senior Bowl week.
What about Quincy Roche, the edge defender from Miami? He's the counterpart to Gregory Rousseau, which obviously with Rousseau and that freak athleticism, he really pops off the tape. I mean, Roche's not just a Robin, though. This guy has some actual legit talent. Super bendy, super flexible. I like this kid a lot.
Well, he wasn't really the counterpart to Rousseau. He was the counterpart to Phillips.
Oh, that's true.
Roche was at Temple before transferring to Miami this last year, and then Rousseau opted out. So we didn't get to see them on the field. Although if we were able to see those 3 different edges on the field at the same time, oh, man, that would be great to see. I like him. He's a little bit lighter. I think he only played at about 230, 235 pounds, which for an edge rusher is extremely light, and it led to a lot of issues against the run. He kind of got blown off the ball. I'm pretty sure teams will want to see him come in a little bit bigger, take this time after the season to put on some muscle, put on a little bit of weight, and have that respond by doing a little bit better with setting the edge against the run. We'll see what happens with him. I like him. I like the athleticism he brings. But, again, it just comes down to that weight. You can't be that light and sustain at the edge in the NFL.
Where do you think he's going to go? He's probably a day 2 prospect in my mind. So tail end of the 3rd round, maybe 4th round, so early day 3.
It really depends on what he does this week. I mean, right now I have him pinned as kind of that late day 2 guy, that round 3 area. If he shows up bigger and he responds on the field with his defense against the run, he can help himself, maybe crack late day 2, or even cement himself as a late day 2 round 3. But if he shows up light and he continues as he struggles against the run in a strong edge group class that has really good depth in that 2nd and 3rd round already, if he doesn't do enough to stand out, we can see him fall probably to early day 3.
Okay, Gage Madrid coming in here on Super Chat. What's up, guys? Thank you all for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers. We appreciate you guys for being here. Which quarterbacks are you excited to see at the Senior Bowl? Gage, we're going to get to that. As far as the national team, we'll hit the American team really fast and just pull this up really fast for you guys. Give you some names to let's see here. Who's there? We've got Kellen Mond, Kyle Trask, and Jamie Newman. Kyle Trask is obviously the highlight name there of the 3. I really do like Kellen Mond, though, as a developmental prospect. His footwork's a little wonky. He's got a really weird throwing motion, too. It's tight and compact, but it just doesn't look like it's natural to me. It's almost a forced release to me. He's got the requisite athleticism to be able to run the ball. They do a little bit of read option stuff, not a lot. They should probably do more, in my opinion, actually, with the read option with him. Kyle Trask, not the guy to me. He's not athletic enough. Jamie Newman is another very intriguing one. It says Wake Forest on the Senior Bowl website, but he actually transferred to Georgia. The last tape you did get to see of him was at Wake Forest in 2019 because he opted out in 2020 after he transferred to Georgia. Big arm talent kid. I really do like this guy a lot. There's a lot of upside to work with him, but he's a day 2 maybe prospect. He's going to go on day 3 more than likely.
Yeah, he could really help himself after opting out, and interviews, because there's been a lot of rumblings as to why he opted out. He didn't want to deal with the competition for quarterback at Georgia with JT Daniels. There's a lot about that being why he opted out, not so much what was going on in the world. So if that's the case, he's got to answer that question, and he's got to nail it in the interviews. And, I mean, even then, you got to take it with a grain of salt because these kids, they are trained. They do deal with trainers who train them how to interview. So you got to take what they say with a grain of salt a little bit. But the guy who intrigues me the most, I'm not interested in Kyle Trask. I like his tape. It's nothing wrong with him as a prospect, but he's just not a modern quarterback anymore. He doesn't have that big arm to challenge deep, and he doesn't have the athleticism or the legs to sit there and be a threat with what there. And more the NFL, you got to have that threat to really maximize your challenges for the defense by forcing them to provide somebody to protect against the quarterback on his legs and also stretching the field deep. Kellen Mond, he's the most interesting guy to me, especially for the Broncos. He could be that later developmental guy, maybe a guy that George Payton likes. And if this coaching staff is on their last legs this year, we don't know that for sure. It's even though it's widely considered it is. He may like Mond to fit who he has in mind to be coming in and taking over, or be seeing a guy who he can come in and really work with Mond and develop him. We don't know. He's the guy who I'm on both teams. He's the only one who really intrigues me. Newman is all about timing and spacing with it, so he could work if they're going to roll with Pat Shurmur as a backup guy. But, yeah, Mond is the one who intrigues me the most.
I really like Jamie Newman's touch, though. When he goes vertically down the field, he's got some really good touch, gets enough air under the ball, and gives his receivers a chance to go and make it. He's just not a big arm guy that's going to fit tight window throws. He's, like Eric said, a lot more timing. Now, to get back to the rest of the American team here, as far as the defensive side of the football, the linebackers, this linebacker class, guys, is actually really fun. Jabril Cox out of LSU. You've got Riley Cole, South Alabama. Charles Snowden is a guy I really like out of Virginia. Let's see here. Jordan Smith out of UAB. Just speak a little bit about Jordan Smith. That's a name that I'm not familiar with.
So I think it's a mistake to list both Charles Snowden and Jordan Smith as linebackers. They're not. They're edges.
Yeah.
Jordan Smith predominantly. He's just a pass rusher. Charles Snowden has a little bit of that versatility to be that hybrid type, but I'd rather him off the edge in a Leonard Floyd type role instead of as an off ball in that Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins type role. But one of the guys I'm really intrigued by is Riley Cole. When I was able to turn on South Alabama tape, and I'm not able to get my hands on very much of it. He always stood out no matter who they were playing against. He always looked like he belonged. And going against a much tougher group than he really faced consistently at South Alabama, I want to see if he can still stick out there and belong. But Jabril Cox, Monty Rice, KJ Britt, those are other linebackers that are good options in this. And it's a strong linebacker class that's lacking talent at the top. And both of their top two guys, Micah Parsons and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, they both have big concerns, one of them being character and off-field stuff, and you can go check into all that, the possible legal issues, and with Micah Parsons, that's easy. That's an easy Google search. And then Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, he's very scheme dependent and may not even be considered a linebacker in a lot of schemes. So this is a good chance for guys like Riley Cole, Jabril Cox, Monty Rice, and KJ Britt, just on the American team. The national team has some really good linebackers as well, but it's a chance for them to step up and show that they could be. They are deserving of those picks in the second or third round, where the meat of the linebacker class really is.
Yeah, Jabril Cox is a guy that I really like. I think he has some pretty decent coverage ability. We're on the American League, or the American team here, so let me find the right one from Jim Nagy. He actually, the cornerbacks and safeties are not actually listed on the Senior Bowl website, so I have to go to Jim Nagy's Twitter account. These just went up earlier this morning as he's announcing some of the players. For the American side, cornerback Robert Rochelle, a guy that we had in a mock draft, Central Arkansas, right? I think that's where he's from. I can't remember exactly where
Robert Rochelle?
Yeah.
Central Arkansas, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. DJ Daniel from Georgia, Afidi Melafuanu from Syracuse, really good safeties in there. They got Richie Grant, Hamza Nezarildeen, Mark Webb, I believe, cornerback as well. Eric, speak to some of these guys.
Both sides of it. Again, this is one of the best rosters that I can remember for the Senior Bowl on both sides of it. They did a really good job. So hats off to Jim Nagy and his whole scouting team that he has there, with finding the guys and getting these kids to sit there and join the Senior Bowl. Granted, they were helped a little bit with everything going on in the Combine getting canceled. Some guys who may have opted out decided to go, but hey, they still put together a really good roster. Robert Rochelle, he's one who really interests me. He's a guy that, again, with any small school guy, Central Arkansas, South Alabama, there's a couple others on here that we're going to be talking about. This is the great chance for them to go. They're going against tougher competition than they may have faced in college on a regular basis, so this is a chance for them to go out there and shine. I mean, Robert Rochelle, he's got some really tough receivers that he's going to be facing against on that national team. So it's a chance for him to shine. Aaron Robinson, he's another one. Daniel Jeremiah just had him in his first round as I think the 32nd overall pick. He's big, he's athletic, he's got the size. He's a guy that I think can go a lot earlier than a lot of people think, even what I think right now. And the Senior Bowl is going to be a big test for him coming out of Central Florida. Richie Grant, he's a guy that I liked last year as well before he decided to return. Same with Hamza Nasser El-Din. I really liked him before he decided to return to Florida State. Yep. This is a good chance for them. Both of them didn't have the best of years. This is a chance for them to answer some of those concerns that people have about him. Afidi Melafuanu, again, he's a guy that I have a little bit more questions about where you actually play him in the NFL.
Right.
I don't think he's a true corner. I don't think he's a true safety. Definitely that versatile hybrid type. Depending on the scheme. The scheme, you can see him work as one or the other a little bit more. But the two Missouri guys, these are guys that I didn't have on my preseason scouting list. And as soon as I turned on, I think, a Missouri game, I immediately wrote these two down. Tyree Gillespie, sorry. And then Joshua Bledsoe. I think Gillespie is a little bit better of a fit for the Broncos. I think Bledsoe is a more of a man-to-man hybrid, kind of that Kareem Jackson role in a man coverage scheme. Being able to play a little bit of cover too, but coming down, handling the slot, playing closer to the line of scrimmage. Tyree Gillespie has a little bit better range, a little bit better athleticism, I think. So I want to see if they can offer up a little bit more versatility. I think that the Broncos, with a potential coaching change coming, that they're going to be looking for guys who can fit Vic Fangio's scheme, but also offer up a little bit of scheme versatility going forward.
Afidi Melafuanu was actually the guy that I'm really looking at there because, like you said, you're not sure exactly what scheme. So he has the ability to play off the ball at safety, play down and play down closer to the ball in the quarterback position, and the really decent tackler. I like him a lot. I really do. Good length too. Really good hand play at the catch point. Before we flipped over to the offensive side, guys, got to give another shout out to one of our sponsors for today's live stream. SportsBetting.com. Broncos Country Gambling is now legal in the state of Colorado. And if you're looking to make watching your favorite sports a little bit more interesting, SportsBetting.com is your no-brainer destination. And here is why. They have sharp odds, low juice. They're in-house bookmakers. They're not a third-party provider of odds, which means that they have reduced juice and also the best prices. They have a hassle-free bonuses with a one-time rollover, meaning the bonus money is yours after you bet it one time, where other sites range from 5 to 30 times. They have 24/7 live customer support with always a real person in the United States. But guys, here's the kicker. Right now, after you make your first deposit, sportsbetting.com will double your deposit up to $300. That's $300 in free bet credits. So guys, head on over to sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle. That's www.sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle and capitalize on up to $300 in free bet credits and start 2021 off on the right foot. We appreciate that. Flipping over to the offensive side of the football for the American team, here, offensive tackle class is actually very intriguing, especially on this side. You've got Alex Leatherwood from Alabama, Ben Cleveland out of Georgia, Erick Jackson from Iowa, a guy that had an ACL injury a couple of years ago, or not an ACL injury, it was a knee injury, missed some time last year, came back and really struggled this year. He didn't take that next step forward. I was really disappointed in him there. And Grambling State, David Moore, a tackle there as well. Eric, have you seen anything on him yet?
Yeah, he's a guard in the NFL.
Okay.
He just doesn't have a combination of, he has a lack of length. I mean, he's 6'5", 320 pounds. So maybe in the right scheme, but I think that he's a guy that you plug in at guard and you just let him do his business. Great in the phone booth, just an absolute mauler. Really like the kid. Ben Cleveland, he's another one that he just doesn't have the athleticism to play tackle in the NFL. So even though he's 6'6", he should be kicked inside to guard. Alex Otherwood, of the actual true tackles, he's the one that interests me the most just because he has so much versatility to play inside, but he has those traits to last outside at tackle. So if you get him, you can try him at left tackle if you have that opening there. If he doesn't work, you can move him to right tackle. If he doesn't work there, you can move him inside to guard. And basically you can keep trying him at different places until you find a spot where he works or that he shows that he can't play any of them. One of the two. But yeah, I mean, it's a good group, but with Ben Cleveland and David Moore especially, it's going to be a chance to show where they really are able to play. Maybe David Moore and Ben Cleveland show up and they absolutely kill it against some of these edge rushers on the national team. And teams think, hey, we can make them work at offensive tackle, and they stick there and they end up having a good career. I don't see it, but Senior Bowl is that chance to prove doubters wrong about certain aspects.
Yeah, Erick Jackson really is intriguing to me just because he seems like left tackle only. Like that's all he's going to be able to play. He can't flip over to the right side. So he's
not comfortable on the right side.
Exactly.
Which is a big issue.
Well, and that's why Tristan Wirfs played on the right side. Tristan Wirfs was a natural left tackle. He could play both sides, but because Erick Jackson was not comfortable there, Tristan Wirfs played on the right side. That's the whole reason why Tristan Wirfs is a right tackle. And he still is very, very good, man. It's just absolutely amazing. Running backs here, Eric, why is Kylan Hill your running back number one?
I really like him. I like what he brings. He is the type of running back that I think that everybody wanted Royce Freeman to be.
Yeah.
He's got that size and the power, but he's got good agility and quickness to get upfield quickly. He's not overly patient like Royce Freeman is as a runner. He sees the hole and he just goes. He works so well in the scheme that the Broncos are running under Pat Shurmur with the inside zone because he's got the size, he's got the power, but he's got the quickness and he's got the vision. He's got all those traits that you need. I like him, and honestly, on my notes, the only other running back that I really have listed is Elijah Mitchell out of Louisiana.
Yep.
He's a kid who he can just do a little bit of everything for you. Again, very similar to Kylan Hill. He's a guy who I think that can work as a number one back. I do have a little bit concerned because he does have quite a bit of miles on his tires already. But I like him. Maybe not a number one in the NFL because of the miles, but he definitely has the traits to be one.
Okay. The only other one that's there, let's see here. We've got Larry Roundtree, the third from Missouri, and then Chris Evans out of Michigan, which not really excited about that.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Do we have to talk about tight ends? Because this tight end class is absolutely garbage this year.
This tight end class is 5 guys and then everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think one of those 5 guys is actually at the Senior Bowl. Who's on the American team?
All right, so I've got Trey McKitty, Noah Gray, Quentin Morris, and Kylan Granson. And Trey McKitty, I watched him the other day. He is a very less athletic Virgil Green, and that's exactly who I think he's going to be. Yep.
That's who you have him as.
Yep.
I have him as a very less athletic Noah Fant. I think he offers that more as a receiver than he ever will as a blocker.
Really? I thought the opposite way on that. I thought with his size, just because he is so huge that he could develop into a blocker, I like the tenacity that he has, but there's a lot of refinement that needs to go there. I like him as a receiver. Well, I get that. But to me, is just because he's so lacking in the athletic department, they're not going to use him as that when you have a Noah Fant. Like if he does go to the Broncos, he's not going to be. I'm not saying that that's what he would be with the Broncos. Right.
I'm saying that's what he's going to be best. I mean, he's not the athlete that Noah Fant is. That's why he's a lesser version of Noah Fant. Mm-hmm. But I like him better as that receiver, shorter underneath, a little bit of intermediate stuff to just go and be a little bit reliable without the blocking to keep him in line.
Okay, that's a good point. I didn't see that, but I get that. Gage coming back, hitting here with another $5 super. Are you guys sold on Trey Lance as a first rounder? I personally am not. There are just too many inconsistencies for me. I see him going early round 2. Lance is so intriguing, and yes, I know I just said I'm very intrigued. No, Trey Lance is actually very intriguing just because you've got the crazy arm talent, crazy athleticism. He makes pretty much any throw you want to. The thing is, with him being just so unknown, small school guy, only has 1 year of production, didn't get to see him this year. It's scary with him, and to me, I wouldn't take him in the top 10 just based on that because you don't know. But also at the same time, he has all of the traits and all the tools to be a first-round player. It's just, to me, is that a risk that I'm willing to take without knowing more about him?
A large part of scouting is not scouting who they are, but what they can be. Trey Lance has the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game because of his traits and his ceiling are so high. Mm-hmm. He's inexperienced. He's got a lot of technical work down despite that inexperience. It's just a matter of getting the experience and getting out there on the field. Smart kid, always wants to sit there and more than willing to put the work in. I see a lot of people comparing him to Paxton Lynch, and that's just a very ignorant comparison because Paxton Lynch cared more about being a Madden quarterback than being an NFL quarterback, and that's not the case with Trey Lance. He's all football, all business. He's a guy who I don't want to speak in certainty, but I'm confident he'll be a top 10 pick in the draft.
I would imagine he goes there. If it was me, I wouldn't there. But at the same time, there's a lot to like with him. I don't hate the player at all. He's got really good tape and really good skills, traits and tools and everything. But at the same time, it's just I don't know. Let's see here. Robert Caslow jumping in here. What round should the Broncos go for an offensive tackle? I'm not going on the first 2 days. I will say that. Unless it's Daniel Fa'alele in round 3, or Jackson Carman maybe. And Jackson Carman's actually at the Senior Bowl. So we'll be able to see a little bit more of him this year as well. Getting back to the Senior Bowl roster.
I want to touch on that real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
You should be willing to draft a tackle at any round. You shouldn't limit yourself by position because say Penei Sewell is your top player in the draft and he falls to 9, you got to be willing to take it. You don't pigeonhole yourself. Now, what round should the Broncos go for an offensive tackle? I think somewhere day 2. That's where the meat of the class is. After round 3, this tackle class really plummets. And maybe have some developmental options, but I think you get that, especially with the concerns about James. You want a guy who can come in and start right away, but not necessarily the best to start right away. So Mike Munchak can work with him, and then when James gets hurt and misses and only plays 63 snaps over the season, you have a guy who can step in and play. And Biggie Bronco has kept talking about Spencer Brown. He asked me my opinion on him. I really like Spencer Brown. He's long, he's lanky, and he looks really thin despite being 320 pounds. I'd like to see him bulk up a little bit and put some work on in the weight room. I don't think he's best for a gap power scheme similar to what the Broncos are currently running, at least not right away. But he is one of those guys that he fits that mold of being a little bit of a developmental guy, more so in the weight room than anything. A little bit of technique work there as well, of course. Every prospect can use technical work when they come to the NFL. But he can come in and start right away when James gets hurt this season. Yeah, notice how I'm saying when, not if.
Yeah. Daniel Jeremiah actually was raving about him, I think is who it was the other day on his Twitter account. Northern Iowa kid. There's a lot to like about Spencer Brown. There really is.
There's talk he could crack the first round. So,
are you serious? Yes. I had not seen that yet. I had not seen that.
Upside.
Okay, that's fair. I can definitely see that. Robert Gage coming in here. Fair point, Eric. I do see the arm talent, and if you feel he does have the intangibles, I will definitely trust your evaluation on that. Speaking to Trey Lance here, Robert Caslow. Should the Broncos take advantage of a team at 10-14 in a trade if Lance is at 9? They definitely could see that happen. I would not surprise me at all. Watch out for New England.
Actually, I want to touch on this, and actually a friend of the podcast, JR Drafts, actually just tweeted this out not too long ago, and he said that that Bronco fans should be rooting for a quarterback to fall to 9, because even if George Paton and the Broncos aren't interested in that quarterback or taking quarterback at 9, the packages they're going to get for a trade ups, because there's a lot of teams that are picking 20 to 29 that will want to jump up and get that quarterback. Chicago Bears, Washington, guys that like the Steelers, who they don't know what they're doing at quarterback. You can really get a good package for it. So you want a quarterback to fall to 9. I don't think it'll happen, but you want it to happen.
Yeah, it definitely could. And another team to watch out there is New England as well. They have no certainty at the quarterback position. Drop down 4 or 5 spots, and where are they at? 15, I think, is where the Patriots are at. If you drop down, let them. If it was Trey Lance, then yeah, absolutely, I would do that. If it was Zach Wilson, no, thank you. Please keep Zach Wilson away from the Patriots organization. But no, if the Broncos want to trade down and go get like a Joseph Osai, then yeah, I could see that. Get a Eric Stokes maybe somewhere around there. Then yeah, I could definitely see that. Mark Anthony, are coaches or scouts from other teams allowed to go to the Senior Bowl practices? NFL decision on combine and working out this year screws the process. I'm not sure. However, I know everything is supposed to be. There's obviously more social distancing protocols and everything this year obviously, but I'm not sure what scouts and coaches and stuff are going to be there. I'm not sure how that's all going to work. Eric, do you have any insight on that?
I actually don't. I know that there's going to be a lot of restrictions on where there's access to.
Yeah.
I think Luke Patterson said last night that there's going to be certain areas in the stands where you have to be, and not really going to be able to interact with each other and everything, which honestly, that's a big part of the Senior Bowl with NFL scouts is they do talk to each other and they do get insight from players and stuff like that. And they have to sit there and figure out what's misinformation and not, but it's a large part of the process for it. So we'll see what happens with it. I'm not exactly sure what all's in place, but they do have stuff in place. And Robert Classo actually comes in with the thing about this. The news is the combine is canceled. It's not canceled. It's just being done very, very differently this year. Instead of one big combine, it's a bunch of little, basically smaller workouts for teams. Teams aren't able to send everybody like they normally do, or are able to do. They're only able to send, I think, like a coach and a scout or something along those lines of that. Right. There's going to be things set up for medical stuff, and all interviews are going to be over Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how everything's all supposed to work out. This whole thing is just trying times that we're in right now. It makes everything a lot more difficult, especially in the scouting process. Obviously, with the combine, the Senior Bowl, the Shrine game. The Shrine game, I believe, got canceled entirely. But still,
what's going on this year and it being impacting the whole draft process, not just the end of it, this is going to be the biggest test for NFL teams and scouts.
Yeah, to figure out what you actually know and check out your scouting department, see and maybe make some upgrades there and hire Erick Trickle on to be their lead scout. All right, back to the Senior Bowl here, guys. The wide receivers on the American squad. There's actually a couple really good guys I'm excited to see here. Marquez Stevenson out of Houston is down there. Kadarius Toney, Jitterbug. Kadarius Toney, Jitterbug player out of Florida. Trevon Grimes out of Florida. Amari Rogers from Clemson. Austin Watkins Jr. from UAB. Josh Palmer from Tennessee. There's a lot of high quality speed and good talent in this wide receiver class. Once again, man, we got two really good wide receiver classes in back-to-back years. It's a lot of fun.
This year's receiver class is, I think, a little bit better at the top, but not as good depth-wise.
That's true.
Last year wasn't as good at the top, but was really a lot better depth. Basically, the top three wide receivers this year, Chase, Waddle, and Smith, they'd be above any of the top guys from last year. Mm-hmm. Now, for what's there's not a lot that interests me. Josh Palmer, I'm not really wowed by him. Austin Watkins, he can fit if you have the right role open for him. He's kind of a cross between Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton, not a guy I'm really looking for.
Right.
Marquez Stevenson, he brings a skill set that's different with his speed and everything. He's not as gadgety as KJ Hamler, which he can really work well with KJ Hamler, with Jerry Judy, and really challenging defenses in multiple different ways. And then Amari Rogers, who he's kind of not, I don't want to say it, that he's like Wes Welker, but that's what he's close to. He offers up a little bit more athleticism and versatility there to be that reliable guy who can find the opening and just go pick up some chunk yards, but he also has a lot of big playability. Also could fit in really well with the Broncos receiver core. Depending on what they do with Tim Patrick, there's a lot of talk that they'll tender him and maybe trade him after they tender him or letting another team sign him away. Cortland Sutton, he's coming back from an injury. Don't know how he's going to do this year. And then he's a free agent after next year. Tim Patrick, if they do keep him, he's a free agent after next year. So they got to balance out that they do have a future need at wide receiver. They got to balance out between getting a guy that they can start developing now for it, along with Tyree Cleveland and Jerry Judy and KJ Hamler, with the right spot in the draft to really start looking at that.
Yeah, and again, not to pigeonhole myself and speak in absolutes, as far as I'm concerned, unless it's like Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith at 9, I'm probably not going wide receiver in the first round. Probably not going to really address the position until day 3. There's some more bigger needs. However, if the right guy falls in your lap, then obviously, take that pick. It's more of a depth thing, at least for this year. To me, I want to see Tim Patrick, I want to see Cortland Sutton come back with Jerry Judy and see what the vision of this roster was actually going to be like that, without really upsetting the apple cart too much. But at the same time, there is a huge future need. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I had Jalen Waddle as one of my top 5 my guys last night because of that same fact, was because Tim Patrick's on the restricted free agent tender. Cortland Sutton has a knee injury. He's in a contract year this year. You don't know. If you have an opportunity to take a high quality guy like a Jalen Waddle at 9, then sure, absolutely. I would be all on board for that. It might not sit very well with the fan base, but at the same time, you have to pay attention to the future. You can't just draft for now.
Want to know what also didn't sit well with the fan base? The fact that they took 2 receivers back-to-back last year.
Exactly.
And why did they take KJ Hamler? Because he fell to a point they wanted to take him, and they thought he was great value because they didn't think he would be there.
Yep.
So they took him. So do I think they would take a receiver right now? I think they would try to look elsewhere. But if one falls to them, I'm not going to sit there. I wouldn't be surprised if Denver took a receiver if they fell. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation there. Will they be graded in a spot where it's considered value? Blah, 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 all that stuff like that. But if it happens.
No, if it happens, just understand that that's the reason why.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, let's flip over to the national team here really fast. Start over again on the defensive line. Patrick Jones II out of Pittsburgh. Love this dude. Absolutely love this dude. Dalen Hayes out of Notre Dame. He's all right as well. Tyrone Jackson from Coastal Carolina. Eric, I know you were talking with him about to James, I think, the other day. Am I thinking the right guy? Tyrone Jackson out of Coastal Carolina?
I was actually talking about Jeffrey Gunter, who's out of Coastal Carolina. He's a defensive lineman. Tyrone Jackson, he's actually a little bit bigger of an edge, 270, more of an even man front end. I like him, though. I like him. If we ran that scheme, I would be all for him later on. Not the most athletic guy, but he's a guy that he'll work on bulldozing his way through tackles to get pressures on quarterbacks.
Yeah. Patrick Jones II, what do you think of him?
I like him. I think he's a guy who a lot of these guys from Pittsburgh, their draft stock this year has really fluctuated. And it's kind of curious as to why. I think Patrick Jones is worth a late first, early second round pick, but I understand this is a very deep class. So I'm wondering if he's kind of falling as a result of that. I do know that there are some concerns about him being scheme limited, also viewed as that even front end. I think he's got a little bit more to offer up as a stand-up rusher, but he does lack length. That's going to be the concern as a stand-up rusher out of a 2-point stance in an odd man front. I actually like it. I like his teammate quite a bit as well, Rashad Weaver, who I think actually there isn't a question about his scheme versatility on the edge, being able to put his hand in the dirt out of a 3-point stance in an even man front, or pull his hand up being a 2-point stance coming out of an odd man front.
Yeah. Chaka Tony, edge out of Penn State. Love this kid too.
Shane Ray.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Shane Ray. He's a pass rush only edge rusher. That's it.
Okay. Hamilcar Rashad Jr. out of Oregon State. They haven't listed a linebacker. He's more of an edge defender too, right?
He's an edge. An edge. Not a big fan of him. Just have a lot of concerns overall about his game. His athleticism, sometimes his burst off the snap is lacking. Just a lot of consistency issues. He's one of those edges that I think could realistically fall to day 3. He had a really down year after having a pretty solid year last year.
Yeah. Is there anybody else on the interior of the defensive line on this group that you have any high quality opinions about?
I don't know, because I don't have the full roster in front of me.
You don't have it? Okay, so, I'll just start reading off here a few names. They have it listed as defensive lineman, but it doesn't say interior defensive lineman, edge, or anything like that, so I'm not exactly sure. Jonathan Cooper out of Ohio State. Levi Onwuzurike, Washington.
Ooh, he's actually a really fun name to watch. Not a fit for Denver whatsoever, but this guy is super explosive off the snap. You put him in an even man front as a 3 technique. That's his only role in the NFL. He can cause a lot of damage as a pass rusher. Some concerns at what he does against the run, but man, he's got the skills to be an interior pass rusher.
No. Adita Kumbo Ogundeji, Dalen Hayes.
Real quick, since I'm seeing this talked about in there, is you don't draft for need, guys. You don't. So while wide receiver may not be the biggest need, if that you find value there in the first round, second round, whenever, you take it. You don't draft for need. You never draft strictly for need. That's how you end up with failed draft classes. It's a combination of best player available at a position of need, but sometimes that gets overwhelmed or that gets overruled by a guy being a true, just wide and far away the best talent on there. And is there a true defensive end in the NFL anymore? Yes. There are guys that are strictly rush linebackers. There are guys that are strict 4-3 defensive ends, and a lot of it deals with size and traits. More and more, you want more versatility because you don't want to be pigeonholed with a guy who's 270 pounds, a 4-3 7-tech defensive end, and then sit there and bring in a new staff that is strictly a 3-4 rusher where your 2 rush linebackers line up as wide 9s. So you want that versatility there. So more and more, you're seeing less of true guys, but there still are some out there.
Yeah, AJ Epinesa is a guy like that. Just he doesn't have the athleticism to be able to drop back into coverage, but he's still a very good 7 technique defensive end, and if you could play some 6 as well too. So I mean, but
he's a guy that well, he can work inside as a 3 tech because it doesn't go just inside out or from the inside out. You also have to factor is can they go from being that end to going inside?
Going inside.
I saw somebody mention Draymond Jones. See, that's what Draymond Jones in the odd man front. He works as that 5 tech, that 4 technique. But if he was going into an odd man front, he's a guy who you can sit inside as a 3 technique, and he could still do work. He's not really a true defensive end because he has that interior defensive line versatility. It's why the standard old position groupings of defensive line, defensive end, linebacker, they all need to be thrown out the window. You have your interior defensive lineman and you have your edge rushers.
Yeah. That's actually a very good point there, Eric. I'm really glad. You know what? We actually kind of broke that down for you guys a while ago about how they need to do realign some things. Is like you got nickel players, you've got boundary cornerbacks. You have to separate the two of those. You've got interior defensive linemen, you got edge defenders. Like you have off-ball linebackers and edge defenders. There needs to be a lot more clarity in the way that people are talking about some of these players, just to help kind of help differentiate where what you guys are kind of seeing and what you're looking at. As far as see here, we're on the national team for the Senior Bowl. Let's jump down to the linebackers.
Back to that question, John.
What question was it? We can grab that really fast.
Should an edge be able to cover? I was going to cover it when we got to linebackers.
Okay. Well, speaking of linebackers, that's where we're at here. Linebackers for the national team, they have Braun Browning, Ohio State, Tuff Borland, who is not a coverage linebacker at all. Chaz Surratt, North Carolina, love this kid. High athlete, very good in coverage. Tony Fields, the second, decent coverage backer there out of West Virginia. Derek Barnes out of Purdue as well. Eric, what do you think?
Actually, I have a couple of them here. Justin Hilliard, Garrett Wallow, we're on the
on the national. Yeah, Justin Hilliard. They have all 3 of the Ohio State linebackers.
Yeah, Tuff Borland. 3 of the 4.
Yeah, Tuff Borland. Right.
Tuff Borland is a guy that you can just cross off. Not a guy that I think should be drafted. I'm not sure he will be either. Baron Browning and Justin Hilliard. Those are the only 2 Ohio State linebackers that intrigue me. They're athletic. They can do well against the run. They still need a little bit of technical work there, and they've got that range to work in coverage. And then Garrett Wallow, he's a guy who's a former safety, and he still covers like a safety, still moves like a safety, still learning how to come up and defend against the run, though, as he learns the linebacker position. And then Chaz Surratt, again, he actually works pretty well in coverage, does all right against the run, still working there. He's a former quarterback that was moved to linebacker and still working. Mm-hmm. Now, for Robert's question about should an edge be able to cover, the simple answer is basically yes. But it really depends on your edge rushers, because there's some that you don't really want to, because you don't want to take them away from getting after the quarterback. And it just really varies on him. Von Miller is one. While you want him getting after the quarterback most of the time, your versatility up front and makes it harder to read for quarterbacks. So if you have Von Miller sitting there lining up like he's going to rush the passer, and he ends up dropping into coverage, he can get an interception. There is a great example of this against the Patriots, I believe it was, on our Super Bowl run, where he looked like he was going to rush. Tom Brady read it as he was rushing. He dropped back and picked off a pass to Robert Gronkowski.
Yes, he did.
So you want that versatility there, but you got to know how to use it, and you got to know how to take advantage of it, and really exploit the ability to get the quarterbacks to read wrong, I guess.
This is a really good question. Would you sacrifice pass rush abilities for coverage talent for an off-ball linebacker? Yes, I would. I would definitely. So long as they can fit well in the running game, then I'm not necessarily asking my off-ball linebackers. If you do ask them to blitz, then being able to rush the passer helps there. But primarily, I want my coverage or my off-ball linebackers to be better in coverage than better as rushing the passer. That's why we're having the issues right now with Alexander Johnson. He's a better blitzer than he is in coverage, and that's why the Broncos are stuck in this position right now of needing to go and find a quality coverage linebacker. So think about that for just a little bit.
And then Biggie Bronco says, a kid from North Carolina, he don't tackle too great for a linebacker. Talking about Chaz Surratt, he does have issues tackling, but it's not because he's a bad tackler. It's because the technique is still being developed as a tackler. The traits are definitely there to be a great tackler. It's just getting the technique down, wrapping up completely, driving through. He still doesn't do that. And that's partially because he was a former quarterback. He's still learning.
Yeah. There's still a lot of room to grow there as well. I mean, he's still so young as far, and I mean, I liked him last year. I would have taken him probably 5th, 6th round last year as a coverage backer, knowing that he'd still need to develop. When he went back to school, that really sucked. I liked him last year as well. Getting back to the national team, let's see here. Since we're still on the defense, let's look at the defensive backs for the national team. And this group is not nearly as good as the American group. I will say that. Divine Diablo is an intriguing prospect there. Damar Hamlin, that's Paris Ford's teammate up in Pittsburgh. Ambry Thomas is a name to watch out for. Cameron Bynum's another good name to watch out for. Eric, what do you think of this defensive back group?
It's weaker at safety, but stronger at corner.
Yeah, it is.
Trey Brown, Trey Norwood, and Rodarius Williams. Those are three guys that I think are getting really overlooked in this corner draft class. I don't think they're great talents that are going to crack day 2, but early day 3, if you run the right scheme that they fit for, they are good options for you. They're pretty reliable. They're going to give up some big plays here or there. They're pretty reliable as tacklers. They might miss a couple here or there. They're just those pretty reliable guys that you kind of have at your cornerback positions because not everybody can be great there. Ambry Thomas, he's one that's really intriguing with his size. He's really tall, but he's kind of light. Keith Taylor, he's one that he can really help himself at the Senior Bowl this year because right now he's being marked off as a cover 3 corner in the mold of Richard Sherman. And there's the success of a cover 3 is really lacking. And if you don't have the great talent at corners like Seattle did with the Legion of Boom, your cover 3 pretty much fails. So he's got to either show that he can be that great talent as a cover 3 corner or that he has a little bit more of a versatility there with the coverage scheme that you're running. Divine Diablo, Damar Hamlin, those are 2 pretty solid safety options. Probably day 3 guys that you could be looking at to bolster your depth.
Yeah. Speaking of those safeties, are there any safeties worth taking in the first round to replace Kareem Jackson's? Short answer, no. But long answer, if you're looking on day 2, there's a handful of them. There's a lot. This safety class is there's no one true stud like you would get like with a Jamal Adams or a Derwin James. There's no like legit player like that, but there are a lot of high quality players in this safety class, and they're all going to go from the top end of the second round through the tail end of the 4th round. And there is even some guys on day 3, the late day 3. Damar Hamlin's a guy late day 3 that I would be really intrigued in. Richie Grant, that's my dude right there. I've loved Richie Grant for the last 2 years now. Ardarius Washington, Hamza Nasruddin, I can never really get his name right. Nasruddin, that's right. Trevon Morg, Paris Ford, there's a Javon Holland from Oregon. I like him a lot as well. But the guy to me to replace Kareem Jackson is either, and Eric's going to disagree with me, but it's Richie Grant or Paris Ford. He's going to say Paris Ford.
Richie Grant, he doesn't have that versatility that you want for. One guy that's not getting talked about that I think could be an excellent fit to replace Kareem Jackson is Sean Wade. Oh yeah, I think the year that he had this year, it proved that he's not really anything more than a nickel corner. But you don't want to play him just in the nickel. You want to just kind of have him roam a little bit because he does have some good playmaking ability. I like him in that role. And more I watch him, the more I see a safety instead of a corner.
That's a good one. Andre Sisco out of Syracuse. That's another guy to watch as well. Had an injury. So that's a name. I think it's Ben Albright was talking about him on Broncos Country tonight. And John's point, injury 2 years ago, right? Yeah. 2 years ago for that injury. Andre Sisco, though, that's a name to watch out for as well. Getting back to the national team as far as the Senior Bowl rosters goes, offensive linemen up there, Robert Hainsey from Notre Dame, Brendan James from Nebraska, Spencer Brown, we already talked about him out of Northern Iowa, Dylan Radunes, that's a guy that was getting some first-round hype but is falling here recently. North Dakota State, Robert Jones, Middle Tennessee, James Hudson, Cincinnati, Creed Humphrey, probably the top interior offensive lineman in this class, not named Rashawn Slater, because Rashawn Slater, we're not sure if he's going to play inside or outside. He's just the best offensive lineman.
Did you just say Creed Humphrey, the best interior offensive lineman, not named Rashawn Slater?
I did.
Elijah Vera Tucker, Wyatt Davis, and Josh Myers would all like a word with you. Landon Dickerson and Deontay Brown as well there.
I don't know, man. Creed Humphrey that's a good name to watch.
He's a center only. That's what he has going against him. He's a center only. And you want versatility on your interior.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I forgot Wyatt Davis. I love Wyatt Davis as well. What about some of these tackles here, Eric? What about Dylan Radunes? What's the reason that he's falling right now?
I think it's just the fact that there's not much tape on him.
Okay.
Just the lack of experience of it. And that tackle in a much stronger class at tackle than it is quarterback, so it's a little bit more reasonable to see here. It's going to hurt you. especially when you have guys like Christian Darrisaw really rising up boards. You have guys like Elijah Vera Tucker who can sit there and show that versatility to play tackle.
Yeah.
You have Alex Leatherwood who has his versatility. You have Leon Eichenberg who absolutely had a great year for Notre Dame. You have all these guys that are really stepping up at tackle, and Dylan Radden's just played one game.
Yeah.
So it's just going against him. He's a great athlete. I think there's also concerns about his strength and functional power, which is going to be limiting to him as well in the NFL for scheme.
Yeah. What about Adrian Ely, Creed Humphrey's teammate at Oklahoma?
He's interesting. For me, he's a later developmental option for it. A lot of technical work that's needed. But if I'm looking for a guy like that, I'm looking for James. That's at the Senior Bowl, anyways. I'm looking at James Hudson out of Cincinnati. He did get ejected, but if you want mean, if you want nasty on the field, he's your guy. Strong, physical, decent athlete. I mean, more than a decent athlete, actually. And I think that he's got pretty good scheme versatility to work in multiple different blocking concepts.
No, you just must be a Cincinnati Bearcats fan. I'm telling you.
They had such a great team this year. They had a lot of talent this year, and for a team like Cincinnati, they didn't really get all the recognition they deserved. They were in the top 10.
They were.
They had a great team. Their quarterback is a good quarterback option for next year. He's the GOAT. Then you have Sanderson, who's I wouldn't be shocked if he pushes for one of the best edge rushers next year. They had some really good safeties. They have Kobe Bryant at cornerback, who he tries to embrace the Mamba mentality, and just all these talented guys that we're going to be seeing them come out. And the best part of it is it's not even the meat of the recruiting classes that their coach has made. So they're looking like they're trying to form a powerhouse there. And I kind of gravitated towards Cleveland or towards Cincinnati this past season.
Yeah, it's hard not to. They had a lot of fun. That Desmond Ridder is supremely talented. All right,
they're fun to watch guys. That's the biggest thing. Is I like watching prospects that are fun to watch, and a lot of them on Cincinnati are fun to watch.
I got a Division III offensive tackle here, Wisconsin Whitewater, Quinn Miners. Have you got a chance to check him out yet?
No, trying to find tape on them is so hard.
Yeah, it's incredibly impossible. But Wisconsin Whitewater is one of the best Division III schools in the country. They are always in the national championship game. Moving forward here, we've got quarterbacks here. Going back to quarterbacks for Gage, Sam Ehlinger from Texas, Ian Book from Notre Dame, and Felipe Franks from Arkansas. Felipe Franks was he at Florida or Florida State?
He was at Florida and replaced by Kyle Trask.
Okay, that's what I thought. Sam Ehlinger, actually, you know what? For a guy that came in with super raw arm talent and was not a very good passer, more athlete than quarterback, he's actually transformed into a solid quarterback. He's not a guy that I think is going to be like a starter in this league. He's just going to be a developmental guy, can maybe come in and win a game for you if you absolutely have to as a backup. Ian Book is another name that's really interesting, but I think he got elevated a lot by the talent around him at Notre Dame. There was some issues to me with Ian Book. Eric, what do you think?
He's very limited. All these quarterbacks on this side are very limited. I'm not excited about it. I wouldn't draft any of them.
No.
Sam Ehlinger has an undraftable grade for me, and he made my top 10. That tells you about the depth of this quarterback class.
Yeah, this quarterback class is strong at the top, but after the top 5, so Mac Jones even, it's a top 4 at least, but after the top 5, there's not a whole lot there. It's just not a very good class. Let's see here. Running backs. This is where Najee Harris is. They have him listed on the national team roster. He's probably not going to play in the game, but the interview process is big for him. Is going to be massive for him. See what he can do maybe in some practices as well. Khalil Herbert is a guy, Eric, I know you're really high on. Let's see here. Michael Carter out of North Carolina. That's Javonte Williams' teammate. And don't think of him as like the backup because Michael Carter is a damn good running back as well. Ramondre Stevenson out of Oklahoma is a guy to watch out for. Demetric Felton as well. Eric, what do you think of this running back group?
I really like Stevenson, Carter, and obviously Herbert for what the Broncos are currently doing. All three of them show those things to be the number one in a stable. Stevenson, he's a very big, very powerful. He's doesn't have that extra gear really to break away. Not a super great athlete, but he can be reliable to go get you chunk yards and open up the door for somebody a little bit more explosive after him. Herbert's the guy that I'm really looking for. He fits the mold of a day 3 running back, fits the scheme, can come in from day 1 and just do well.
Yeah. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. Underrated receiver out of the backfield, actually.
Yeah. And then with Felton, he's a guy that if you want a Darren Sproles type, there you go, Felton.
Yeah. Tight ends. And Eric, I think I found the guy that you're talking about at the tight end position that's one of the top 5 guys, and then everybody else is gone. Hunter Long out of Boston College is the only one that is actually worth talking about. Decent blocker. They have Tony Poljan out of Virginia and Kenny Yeboah out of Ole Miss.
Kenny Yeboah is worth talking about because he's another one of those super athletic move F tight ends that can really do damage, but he's not a blocker.
Okay.
Evan Ingram type mold.
Yeah, I'm still working on tight ends as well right now, and I told you about that the other day, so I'm not certain about him, but I do know Hunter Long.
And then Poljan has some good upside, but he's going to need a lot of development.
Okay. Let's see here. Let's run to the comment stream really fast, see if we can grab a couple questions before we hit wide receivers and then shut this thing down.
I do want to talk about this real quick and just kind of clarify it, since we have a lot of questions about the need for wide receiver. We're not saying Denver's going to draft a receiver. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that we can get the reasoning behind it. You have Tim Patrick, who is a restricted free agent this year. Denver, I would expect them to tender him. And after they tender him, they may trade him away, or another team may come in, give him an offer, and Denver not match that offer. It's the right of first refusal. They have the right to match the offer. And Denver's in a spot where, while everything looks all fine and dandy with their cap space, they're not in the best spot because of free agents that they have impending. So if somebody comes in and gives Patrick that offer, I don't think Denver will match. That right there, they're losing. They're really their number 3 guy on the depth chart after Sutton and Judy. And then you have KJ Hamler who can step up. I know there's a lot of people who are hyped out about what Tyree Cleveland showed. I really like him. I liked him. He's a guy who last summer I was in there pounding the table for that can make the roster, and he ended up making it. So congrats to me for being right there. But you have Deshaun Hamilton that you want to try to upgrade over as well, because he doesn't do a lot that you can really rely on outside of being a 5th receiver.
And he's also in a contract year. He's also in a contract year,
and I don't think he makes the Broncos this year. Then you add into the fact that there's Cortland Sutton coming back from an injury, and he's a free agent after next year. If he doesn't have that great of a year, maybe you can keep him back and try to have him have that big year. But if he has that big year, maybe it comes financial reasons. So it's not saying that we are going to, or that Denver should go after a receiver. It's saying that it's very easy to see why they could and justify the pick of a receiver.
Yeah. It's, like I said, it's unlikely. I don't think the Broncos do go receiver in round 1. And there's
if they do, I think it's day 3. If they go get a receiver, I think it's day 3 to better their depth, which is where you want to try to better your depth. Day 3.
Yep. Todd Ostendorf coming in here. If Waddle is as good as y'all think, is unlikely he falls. Actually, Waddle at 9 is that's a thing. Waddle at 9 could be a legitimate thing. Like, don't think about that. Don't speak in absolutes. There's a definite possibility one of Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, or Jalen Waddle will be available at 3. There's a definite possibility that could happen. Pranks Films jumping in here on Super Chat. What's your opinion on drafting Najee Harris? He might be a better back in the long run than Phillip Lindsay. Which veteran quarterback do you want as a backup? As far as Najee Harris is concerned,
he's much better than Phillip Lindsay.
Yeah, he's much better than Phillip Lindsay, first off. Let's just say that. Much more well-rounded in his skill set, better receiver, better blocker, and it can actually play on third downs. I don't know about drafting a running back that high, per se. Especially given the needs at cornerback, at the edge, at safety, off-ball linebacker. So running back.
Don't draft a running back for day 3, period.
Yeah. Maybe third round guy, maybe.
No.
But Najee Harris is going to run the tail end of the first round.
Let me as stipulation on that. You don't draft a running back before day 3 unless a guy who you think is like a first or second round talent falls to round 3. Then you can justify it because it's such a great value for it. But still, or rather just draft that guy in day 3. In day 3, draft that running back there. Or it most of the time it just ends up biting the team that made that draft selection in the butt.
The one, and it did actually kind of kick them in the butt this year. The one situation where I could understand drafting a running back in the first round is one where you're like the Kansas City Chiefs last year, and you have everything already filled, and you just need that elite running back to come in and join the team and make it just a little bit better, and draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire, number 32 overall. That's the only time you should ever draft a running back in the first round.
We'll come back to your veteran quarterback question here after this. I just want to add this. Justin Ross returned to Cleveland. Daryl, so he's not really returned to Clemson. He's going to give it a go this year. He's been medically cleared, so we're going to see what he can do. He has a chance to be one of the higher drafted running or receivers next year, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
That neck injury is still going to be a concern. Now, back to veteran quarterback. Who do you want as a backup? What veteran do you want as a backup?
What veteran do I want as a backup? Nick Foles.
Why?
Because he's got at least some time with Pat Shurmur and has played in this system. He understands it. And he's probably not going to be good enough to really push Locke. He's going to push Locke, don't get me wrong, but he's not going to win the job outright. I think Locke still can win that job, and then Foles is going to come in and be able to play behind him if Locke bombs completely, and they're still going to be at least decent enough. He's got a good offensive line, some good receivers to throw the football to, decent running game that he can work with. The defense, so long as they stay healthy, I mean, Nick Foles can potentially take you to 9-7.
Which you don't want, though.
Well, I understand that.
If Nick Foles ends up starting, it means Drew Lock failed, and you don't want to have him turn around and be that, because then you don't have a chance to get another quarterback.
I don't want a veteran backup anyways. I'd rather the Broncos go draft a quarterback and run that way, or trade for Sam Darnold.
The question now wasn't Lance.
No, I answered the question at hand. Andy Dalton's another intriguing option.
Andy Dalton is the one I would go with, because if he comes in, you still have a good chance to lose a bunch of games and put yourself in a better position to draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Is I want a veteran quarterback that can help Locke, which Dalton and Foles both can. No argument there. But if Locke fails and they have to start, not a guy that's going to risk you to get you to 9-7 or anything, a guy who you might get to 5 wins with. That's Dalton.
I think that you could still win some games with him, and that's the thing. This Broncos team is not nearly as bad as everyone wants to say it is. They got destroyed by injuries and some mitigating circumstances that made them lose a lot more than they actually should have. The Broncos picking at 9 right now. Next year, if they stay healthy, they're not picking in the top 10. I can almost guarantee that. They're not, even with Drew Lock, even if Drew Lock is a starter, they're not going to pick in the top 10 again. I almost guarantee it. There's a lot of talent on this team, and they're going to grow. It's so young on the offense. They're going to grow. They're going to figure it out, and they're going to be a lot better. They're going to be at 8-8 anyways. They could have been 8-8 this year as it is. So
yeah, we heard that all last year, and then injuries happen. You shouldn't talk uncertainties.
Well, yeah, but you understand what I'm getting at. Like,
I do.
If it does stay healthy, if this team does stay healthy, they're an 8-8 club at the worst. Like, honestly, they really are an 8-8 club at the worst if they stay healthy.
It all comes down to the quarterback position.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm at right now. Go get your young guy now, and you let him sit behind Drew Lock, and then figure out if Drew Lock's going to be your veteran backup moving forward. You get your young guy now, let him grow, let him have the year to grow, just exactly like the Kansas City Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes, even though it's a different circumstance there with Alex Smith as compared to Drew Lock. But you get your young guy, you let him grow for a year behind the system, set him up for year one success with a very talented team behind him in his first year as a starter in 2022. That's the way that I would do this, quite honestly. We're over our hour mark now, so we got to finish this up, guys. Wide receivers from the national team. I really like this group, man. Cade Johnson, South Dakota State. Tylan Wallace, Oklahoma State. Nico Collins from Michigan joined in. Again, Devontae Smith, who's probably not going to play, from Alabama. Sage Surratt from Wake Forest. A lot of really good talent here, guys. I love Tylan Wallace. There's an explosive aspect to him. He brings another skill set that Tim Patrick doesn't bring to this team. I would love him in a Denver uniform. I really would.
Tylan Wallace would be interesting. He brings that speed and that athleticism to challenge deep and that different skill set that you don't really have in your receivers.
Yep.
The two guys that I'd be looking at, though, is Dwayne Eskridge and Frank Darby. Frank Darby, there's some questions about how you actually use him. Senior Bowl week's going to provide some answers there with him. He kind of has that Laviska Shenault type mold, being able to use in a variety of ways. And then Dwayne Eskridge out of Western Michigan, he's a guy that very KJ Hamler-like. A lot of talk about him running a sub 4.340, very fast, has pretty solid routes. I believe and what little bit I've watched, I'm very limited in exposure with him. Haven't gotten around to a lot of small school guys yet. His hands seem pretty fine, which was a big concern with KJ Hamler. We'll see what he can do against some tougher competition or anything like that. But Dwayne Eskridge is definitely a guy that I'd like. He's a guy that I think that he'd be going a little bit earlier than Denver would be looking to go for a receiver, but maybe if he fell. I mean, Devontae Smith, he's there for interviews. I don't think he's a guy for Denver, really. And then the other guys are just guys that I'm just met on or don't really fit with what the Broncos kind of need from the receiver core.
No, if you want to replace Tim Patrick, Nico Collins would be a decent one, but if you want that same kind of player, then Nico Collins is Tim Patrick. Essentially, that's my particular opinion on that. Mohammed Badri jumping in here with a $2 super sticker. What's up, Mohammed? How we doing, man? John, if you could pull that up for us, that'd be great. If not, then we'll deal with that later. Hour and 3 minutes. Looks like that's pretty much going to do it for us here today, guys, on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Thanks for joining us all. You guys can follow us on Twitter. We never there's the sticker from Muhammad. Hey you with the hey you pair. The pair. Yeah, pair. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for us on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast today. Thank you all for watching us. Follow us on Twitter at Sanderson MHH and for Erick at Erick Trickle. Also, guys, while you're at it, follow at Mile High Huddle for instant news and analysis on your Denver Broncos. Follow at DVDD_pod for the easiest way to keep in touch with what's going on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Like today, we never really planned that we were going to do this. It kind of just happened. We did a show last night that filled in for Dove Valley Deep Divers, and Chad and Erick and I decided we were going to throw together a quick stream for you guys today at noon to get our show back on the forefront. So follow us on Dove at DVDD_pod. Head on over to Manscaped. Use the code HUDDLE for 20% off and free shipping on your Manscaped orders. While you're at it, huddleuppod.com. Get your swag on. Get yourself a hat. There's a T-shirt, face mask, coffee cup, hoodie, anything that suits your fancy, guys. And if you guys aren't willing to do that, the 3 easiest things you guys can do is subscribe wherever you guys are watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, does not matter. Like every video that you guys see. And if you love it, share it. Share it out in front of as many people as you possibly can. And that's the easiest way to help the show grow. Now, Erick, before we get out of here, what you got going on the rest of the day? We're going to do some more draft stuff behind the scenes?
Yep, we're going to be working on some draft stuff. Lance, Carl, and myself are working on putting together top positional rankings and a big board for that fits specifically for the Denver Broncos, looking at scheme fits, style fits, role fits, all that kind of stuff like that. We're going to be jumping on that basically as soon as we're off here. Other than that, not much. I'm going to continue working on all my draft content. I have a bunch of videos that are recorded. I just got to get them made and get them out published. I know while we were live, we did see a video of mine go get published. It was a video on running backs, I believe it was, running back fits. So make sure you guys are checking that out. But yeah, just draft stuff. And guys, don't forget tonight, Mile High Insiders, Nick and Luke. Luke, who's going to be at the Senior Bowl. Make sure you guys tune in for it. Make sure you guys are following Luke. Make sure you guys are following Nick. But Luke especially, because you're going to be getting a lot of content from Senior Bowl week this week out of him. So make sure you guys are following him and make sure you guys tune into the show with tonight with them as well, because while we don't know the topic about it, I would have to assume that it has something to do with the Senior Bowl. Yeah, but you know what to say about assuming. So make sure you guys tune in tonight.
I would guess that would be the case. Yes, follow Luke at Luke Patterson LP on Twitter, guys. For Nick Kendall at Nick Kendall MHH as well. It's really exciting. There's just some quick upcoming announcements. So we'll do some more Senior Bowl breakdown next week on Dove Valley Deep Divers as well. We're trying to get a couple of guests to join in here as well. If not, we're going to run our top 25 personal boards for the Broncos here in the next coming weeks. Try to get Luke Polglaze. If we can potentially get Luke Polglaze. In fact, he's got some real life stuff going on for him right now. We were trying to get him on next week, but unfortunately had to cancel on that. And then also the guys at the Draft Bible just got picked up by Sports Illustrated and Fan Nation. So they're a part of the Sports Illustrated with Mile High Huddle right now. And I'm in contact with Ryan Roberts of the Draft Bible to come on. We'll talk some draft stuff probably around the Combine. So just keep your eyes open for that on some Dove Valley Deep Divers programming. But Erick, we're going to get out of here for now. I will talk to you here in just a little bit. But for everybody else, you all stay safe, take care, have a great rest of your weekend. And also, go Bills, go Bills, go Bills. We'll see you guys later.
Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.